This happened a few years ago. I was 31 and working as an IT technician. I spent long nights at the office, keeping the network safe. I thought it would be easy, but those 8 nights changed everything for me. On my first night, I settled into my desk. The fluorescent lights buzzed around me. I was sipping my lukewarm coffee when I noticed a strange weight in the air. Around midnight, I started to hear a keyboard clicking nearby. I thought maybe a coworker stayed late. I looked around, but the closest cubicle was empty. It felt odd, but I brushed it off. The next night, the office was eerily quiet. I tried to shake off the weird typing I had heard before, but I saw dark shapes moving in my peripheral vision. Every time I turned my head fast, nothing was there. My heart raced, and I felt beads of sweat rolling down my back. I told myself it was just the shadows from the lights. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. By the third night, whispers began. They were soft, almost like murmurs just outside my understanding. I leaned in, trying to catch a word, but it never came. I stood up, my footsteps echoing in the empty hall. Each step felt heavy, like I was dragging my heart with me. I peeked into conference rooms, but they were all empty. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me, I thought. But deep down, I felt something was wrong. Then the files on my desk started changing. I would leave them in neat stacks, but they were a mess when I got back. One night, a memo I had just printed was out of place. I picked it up, trying to rationalize it. Maybe I had missed it when I cleaned up, but I hadn't touched it since I printed it. My heart thudded loudly in my chest. I glanced around and felt the weight of the emptiness. On the fourth night, I heard footsteps coming closer, fast and heavy. I shot around in my chair, breathless and scared. But again, nothing was there. It was like the building was alive, hiding something from me. I felt icy tendrils of fear creeping down my spine. I quickly packed my things. Maybe it was just my tired mind, or maybe something was really wrong. By the last night, I was on edge. I had been jumping at every sound. I knew I couldn't stay there much longer. I heard my name being whispered, soft and low, almost like it was calling me. I froze, staring into the dark hallways. My pulse quickened. I rushed out of the office without looking back, convinced I was being drawn into something dark. I still didn't know what happened during those 8 days. I remember the weight of that silence and the creeping feeling of being watched. I never returned to that office late at night. I guess some things are better left unknown. The next morning, I woke up restless. I had told myself that I wouldn't let the office haunt me, but those whispers were still echoing in my mind. I showered, got dressed, and drove to work. But the unease lingered. I needed answers. When I arrived at the office, the sun was shining, and the place felt different in daylight. The shadows faded, and the fluorescent lights buzzed a little less menacingly. I thought the sunlight might clear the fog in my head. I stepped into my cubicle and logged onto my computer. Maybe I could find something in the system, some clue about what had been happening. While browsing through files, I noticed something odd in the system logs. It showed access attempts late at night, but the timestamps were missing. I leaned closer, squinting at the screen. The last entry had a gap of a whole hour. Whatever had happened in that time was recorded as unknown. My heart raced at the thought of unauthorized access. It sent a chill down my spine. I needed to review the security camera footage. I walked to the security office, my mind racing. As I made my way down the dimly lit corridor, I felt a familiar tightness in my chest. The stillness pressed in on me, making every step feel heavy. I opened the door to the security room and sat in front of the monitor. I focused on the footage from the nights I had been working late. I scrolled through the hours, watching the empty hallway slowly lighten. A sense of dread built up inside me as I scanned the frames. Just when I thought it might have been nothing, I saw it. A fleeting shape darted across the screen. It was quick, but unmistakable. My breath hitched in my throat. I froze, rewinding the footage to watch again. The figure was dark and indistinct, but it moved with purpose. Then I saw something even more disturbing. It lingered around my cubicle. I felt a rush of nausea as I remembered the whispers. My skin prickled. I was not alone during those nights. Suddenly there was a loud bang that echoed from down the hall. It jolted me right out of my chair. I stared at the screen, breathless. I quickly hit pause on the footage. The shape had vanished. I felt a lump in my throat. Maybe it was just a maintenance crew, I told myself. But deep down, I knew that couldn't be true. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to check it out. As I stepped into the hallway, my senses heightened. The air felt electric, and the silence was almost oppressive. I walked slowly, cautious of every shadow. Then I saw it. The door to the server room was ajar, swinging slightly. My heart raced. That wasn't supposed to happen. I approached the door, the whispers from before swirling in my thoughts. I gently pushed the door open. As I stepped inside, a cold gust of air hit me. The lights flickered overhead, and that's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. Something was in there with me. I stood frozen at the entrance of the server room, my heart pounding against my chest. The flicker of movement, whatever it had been, had slipped away into the shadows. I took a cautious step inside, my eyes darting between the rows of humming servers. A part of me wanted to turn back, but curiosity kept me rooted in place. The chill in the air was thick, making it hard to breathe. I glanced around. The light overhead flickered again, casting dancing shadows on the walls. It felt like the room itself was alive, watching me. I strained my ears, hoping to catch any sound, breathing, shuffling feet, or even a whisper. Instead, there was only silence, and this silence was heavy. Then something caught my eye. On one of the screens, a line of code scrolled wildly, as if someone had been typing frantically. I rushed to the monitor, the glow illuminating my face. I wanted to believe that I was imagining things, but the string of characters was real. It was like a digital scream filled with urgency. Before I could process it, a loud crash reverberated outside the server room. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. Panic surged through me, and my instincts screamed to escape. I thought of the figure I had seen in the footage. Was it here now? With trembling hands, I fumbled with the mouse and tried to access the logs on the screen. I needed to make sense of what was happening. But the computer froze, unresponsive. My breath quickened as I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Just as I was about to give up on it, the screen flickered again, and then, as if in response, the lights above went completely dark. Panic enveloped me like a thick fog. I fumbled for my phone in my pocket and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut into the darkness, revealing the stark outlines of the servers. I could see the door behind me, slightly ajar, but now it felt like a portal to another realm. I took a step back, my instincts screaming to run. But something stopped me. A sound emerged from the shadows. A whisper. It was soft, almost playful, yet filled with a menacing undertone that made my skin crawl. I strained to hear the words, but they were muffled and indistinct. Was it calling to me? I couldn't tell if I was drawn towards it or compelled to flee. In a moment of clarity, I remembered the security footage. The whispers and the figure converged in my mind, each pulling me deeper into suspicion. My pulse raced as I contemplated one thought. The figure wasn't just a specter of my imagination. It was connected to the chaos in the code and the secret access attempts. Just then I heard another crash, more pronounced this time, shaking the walls. I hesitated, my heart racing as adrenaline surged. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Whatever was lurking in the shadows was coming for me. Taking a deep breath, I turned and bolted for the door. As I reached for the handle, it flew open, and there stood a dark silhouette blocking my escape. "Who are you?" I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Then everything went black. I gasped, struggling to draw in a breath. The darkness felt thick, wrapping around me like a shroud. My heart raced, and I could feel the frigid air pressing against my skin. I sensed the silhouette moving closer, almost silently. I shut my eyes tight, hoping that somehow this was just a nightmare I could wake up from. A low laugh broke the blackness, sending chills down my spine. My instincts kicked in again, and I pushed past the figure to get to the door. The cold metal grazed my fingertips as I stumbled into the hallway. I could hear the echo of my breath, shaky and uneven. I glanced back once, but the figure had vanished without a trace. "Get yourself together," I muttered under my breath. There was no way I could let fear take over. I needed to find out what was happening. I moved toward the break room, trying to steady my breath. Maybe I could get to my car and drive away from this nightmare. But as I turned the corner, the lights flickered back on, blinding me momentarily. I shielded my eyes, and when I looked again, I was shocked to see something sprawled out on the table. An open laptop, its screen glowing with a line of the same frantic code I had seen earlier. How had it gotten there? Panic coursed through my veins again. I thought about the security footage back in the server room. A chill crept up my spine. Someone had been here. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling in the silence. I didn't even know why I bothered. There was no one else here, only the shadows and echoes of my footsteps. I stepped closer to the laptop, feeling a mixture of dread and curiosity. Just as I reached for it, the screen flickered and a distorted image appeared. A face twisted and unrecognizable, blurred by static. I stumbled backward, my heart racing anew. I could have sworn I saw it smile, a chilling grin that sent shivers down my spine. That wasn't just a face, it was a warning. Before I could make sense of it, I heard the faint sound of footsteps coming from the hallway. They were slow and deliberate, each step echoing in the silence like a countdown. I glanced over my shoulder, panic gripping me. I could see the outline of a figure moving just beyond my line of sight. With the laptop still open behind me, I felt tethered to that spot. I wanted to run, to hide, but I needed answers. I forced myself to turn and face the laptop again. I had to access that code. Maybe it held the key to what was going on, or at the very least, an explanation. Just then the lights cut out again and my stomach dropped. I fumbled for my phone, but the flashlight seemed weak, flickering like the only thing holding me to reality. I looked back at the hallway and my heart stopped. The shadow was much closer now, looming at the edge of the darkness. I took a step back, ready to sprint, when I noticed something on the laptop screen. A command line began scrolling again, this time stopping at a single line of text. "You shouldn't have looked for me." I felt ice in my veins. That wasn't just a message, it was a threat, and it was directed at me. I turned to run, but the darkness was alive now, pulsating with urgency. Whatever was out there, it was coming for me. I bolted down the hallway, the cold tiles beneath my feet feeling like ice. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could still hear that mocking laughter echoing through my mind. I didn't dare look back. I just ran, trusting my instincts to guide me. I reached the stairwell and hesitated for a split second. Should I go up to the roof? No, that could trap me. The last thing I needed was to be cornered. I took the stairs down, leaping over the last few steps in a rush. "Get outside," I told myself. "Just get outside." As I pushed through the door to the parking level, light flooded my vision. I shielded my eyes, struggling to adjust. But that moment of relief was short-lived. Something shattered in the distance, sending fear racing back through me. I knew I wasn't alone. I spotted my car at the far end of the parking lot and took off towards it. My breath was coming out in short bursts, and my hands trembled as I fumbled for my keys. They jangled noisily as I sifted through my pockets, my pulse quickening. That's when I saw it. A figure stood next to my car, their head turned down, hiding their face. My stomach dropped as a creeping sense of dread washed over me. Instinctively, I ducked behind an old sedan, my heart hammering. What were they doing there? How could they have found me so quickly? I peered out from my hiding spot, still clutching my keys. The figure leaned against my car, tapping their fingers rhythmically on the hood. The sound was unnerving, like a clock ticking down. Each tap felt like a countdown to something terrible. "Come on," I whispered to myself, willing my legs to move. I had to get away. But as soon as I made the decision to bolt, the lights flickered off again. Night enveloped me. Panic swept in since darkness was so much thicker here. I could barely see my own hands in front of me. Then the tapping stopped. "Where are you going?" The voice was low and mocking. It sent chills creeping up my spine. I couldn't tell if that was the same voice I'd heard before or someone new. It didn't matter. It filled me with dread. I stood frozen, engulfed in the dark, wrestling with the urge to scream. Quiet desperation filled the air, and I took a breath. To my horror, I felt something cold brush against my ankle. I jerked away and stumbled backward, almost colliding with a car parked behind me. My heartbeat thundered as I faced the figure's general direction again. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I had to do something, anything. Then came a sound that froze me in place. A low, guttural growl emanated from the shadows, unmistakable and chilling. I blinked frantically, trying to locate the source. Before I could think, I made a break for it, sprinting toward the exit. The growl deepened, turning into an almost human-like laugh. I glanced back one last time. The figure stood there, still, but suddenly they pointed straight at me. "You can't escape me," they said, voice dripping with malice. My breath hitched. I pushed through the exit, desperate for freedom, but the night outside felt surreal, a mirage promising safety. I turned around. Behind me the door slammed shut, and I was left standing in the cold air, unsure of what lay ahead or what I'd just escaped. I had more questions than answers, and I knew whatever was pursuing me wasn't finished yet. I stood outside the dimly lit parking structure, my breath forming small clouds in the chilly night air. The cold seeped into my bones, but I couldn't linger. That figure. I had to put as much distance as possible between us. My heart was still racing, and I sensed that I was far from safe. I glanced around, desperately searching for a place to hide. The street was empty. The only sound was the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. I decided to head towards the nearby alley. It felt like my best option. I moved quickly, every step heightened with dread. My instincts screamed at me to keep moving. As I slipped into the alley, I pressed my back against the cool brick wall, listening intently for any sign of pursuit. Nothing but silence. For a moment I let out a shaky breath, but then I remembered that laugh. The sound wrapped around me like a blanket of terror. What did they want with me? I started making my way deeper into the alley, glancing back just to ensure I wouldn't be ambushed. The flickering streetlights cast eerie shadows, lengths of darkness stretching toward me like long, grasping fingers. Then I heard it again, a growl, closer this time. Panic surged as I turned and bolted further into the alley, not looking back this time. My lungs burned as I ran, desperate to escape whatever was haunting me. It felt like the shadows were alive, reaching out to pull me down into a pit of despair. Suddenly, I stumbled into a dead end. A high fence loomed in front of me, solid and unyielding. My mind raced, my thoughts a jumbled chaos. I had to climb it, but as I reached for the top, I could hear the growling again, closer than before. I froze, just as the laugh pierced through the stillness. It was the same mocking sound that had followed me in the parking lot. In a panic, I turned to find the source, expecting to see that figure emerging from the darkness. Instead, I was met by a pair of glowing eyes staring back at me from the shadows. That's when I saw it, a massive shape as dark as the night around it, creeping closer. It nearly blended into the shadows. My heart pounded. This was more than just a person. It felt primal. I could sense its intent. In that moment, my survival instincts kicked in. Adrenaline surged, and I launched myself at the fence, ignoring the pain in my hands as I clawed my way up. Almost there. I could hear the growling intensifying, the laughter merging into a cacophony of confusion and terror. I finally reached the top. My foot found a hold, and I threw myself over, landing hard on the ground on the other side. Pain shot through me, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. I picked myself up and sprinted away, glancing back just once. The creature had followed me. It stood at the edge of the alley, the glow from its eyes piercing the night, fixated on me. I was terrified, but I knew I couldn't stop running. I had no idea if I'd make it to safety. But then, as I dashed into the street, something on the ground caught my eye. A piece of paper. I skidded to a stop, heart pounding. It was a photo. My photo. The face staring back at me was unmistakable. It was me, but the date scrawled on the back chilled me to the bone. I was already in too deep, and there was no way out now. My heart raced as I tried to process what this meant. I held the photo tightly, eyes darting around the empty street. Shadows lurked at the corners, and that feeling of being watched seeped in again, colder than the air. I forced myself to breathe deeply, but my chest tightened with anxiety. This couldn't be happening. I shoved the photo into my pocket and took off again, moving faster than before. I needed to get to a place where I could think clearly. My mind raced through options. My office wasn't far from here. Maybe there I could find some answers, or at least a way to contact someone who could help. Pushing through the fear, I took a turn toward the main street and headed towards my office building, my footsteps echoing off the pavement. The glow of the streetlights felt less like a beacon of safety, and more like a spotlight, illuminating my every move. Each step felt heavy, like the ground was trying to keep me down. As I neared the building, I felt a chill run down my spine. I instinctively quickened my pace, glancing back again. Nothing. Still, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was trailing me, weaving in and out of the shadows just beyond my sight. I fumbled with my keys as I reached the entrance, unlocking the door and slipping inside, gasping as I turned the handle. The silence of the office building enveloped me like a shroud. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and for a moment I just stood there, letting the weight of the last hour settle. But I needed to keep moving. I turned toward my office on the 4th floor and started up the stairs. My mind struggled to piece together a plan. Why was someone targeting me? The photo felt like a threat, a warning. Was it a coincidence that I had seen that figure? As I reached the floor, I heard something. A faint noise, like a whisper, echoing down the corridor. I froze, my heart racing again. "Hello," I called, my voice shaky in the quiet. The whisper stopped. I held my breath, straining to listen, but there was nothing. I walked cautiously toward my office, the door slightly ajar. Visions of what might be waiting inside sent fear coursing through me. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The office was dark, save for the glow of my computer screen. I flipped the light switch and the overhead bulbs hummed to life. That's when I saw it. An envelope sitting on my desk, the return address smeared. My hands trembled as I reached for it. I tore it open, heart pounding in anticipation. Inside was another photo, but this one chilled me more than the last. It was a picture of my office, but from the outside. It was taken at night, just minutes after I had left the parking structure. The same figure from before was faintly visible, standing beneath a streetlight. A single word was scribbled at the bottom. Soon. The laughter echoed in my mind again, and the cold realization hit me. Whatever was happening was close. I had to act before it was too late. But first, I needed answers. Then, I caught a movement out of the corner of my eye. The shadows were shifting, and I wasn't alone anymore. Someone or something was in the building with me. I pressed my back against the door, heart slamming against my chest. The shadows beyond my office seemed darker, like they were waiting for me to make a move. I scanned the small room, searching for something, anything that could help. The desk was bare except for the envelope and my computer. Then I heard it again, the whisper, this time clearer. It felt like it was coming from the hallway, luring me out. In a moment of uncertainty, I grabbed the photo from the envelope and held it up to the light. Had someone been watching me all this time? With cautious steps, I moved toward the door, peering out into the dim corridor. Everything looked empty, but a sense of dread hung in the air. I listened closely. The faint rustle of paper reached my ears. It was coming from further down, near the break room. "Hello?" I called again, the tremor in my voice betraying my fear. Silence. I edged out of the office, hoping to find out what was making that sound. I clutched the photo tightly, the word "soon" echoing in my mind like a countdown clock. As I stepped into the hallway, a shiver ran through me. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. I glanced toward the break room. Dread sank deeper into my stomach. I moved slowly, trying to suppress the rising panic. When I reached the break room, the door was slightly ajar, swinging gently as if someone had just exited. The rustling noise stopped the moment I neared it. I paused and wiped sweat from my palms on my jeans. My breath quickened. I pushed the door open, ready to confront whatever awaited me. The break room was empty, but the remnants of late-night coffee sat abandoned on the counter. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of something at the window. I stepped closer, peering through the blinds. A figure stood outside, facing away from me, cloaked in darkness. I could feel my pulse roaring in my ears. "You've got to be kidding," I whispered. Who was this person? Why were they outside? Then came the laughter again, harsh and thin, filling the air like smoke. I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance, and stepped on something. A chipped mug from the floor. It clattered against the tiles, echoing loudly. The figure turned and stared directly at me. In that moment, fear pierced through me like ice. I froze. The shadowy figure's face was obscured, but I could feel its eyes boring into me. Every instinct screamed to run, but something kept me rooted in place. The figure slowly raised a hand and pointed right at me. A rush of adrenaline broke the trance. I swung around and bolted down the corridor, desperate to escape. My mind raced with thoughts of what could happen next. I had to get out of this building, but the only exit was right behind me. Just as I neared my office again, the lights flickered once more, plunging the hallway into blackness. Panic gripped me, and I pushed open the door, praying that the figure wasn't right behind me. Inside the office, I shut the door and locked it. For the moment, I was safe, but I could still feel the tension in the air. I turned around, and that's when I noticed it. The envelope on my desk had moved. Now it was half open, as though someone had been rifling through it while I was distracted. An icy chill washed over me as I reached for it again. I needed to know what they had taken, but now I also needed to know how to escape. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the edge of the envelope. What had they seen? What had they taken? My heart raced as I finally pried it open further. Inside lay the photo, now crumpled at the edges but still recognizable. It was a picture of me, taken from a distance. The air felt thick with dread as I turned it over. There, scrawled in shaky handwriting, was a message. "You don't know what I know." The words sent a fresh wave of terror through me. Had someone been following me, watching me? I glanced around the office, searching every corner for signs of movement. Shadows lurked, and I imagined a presence just out of sight. I wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans again, breathing hard. I needed to calm down. That's when I heard it. A soft thud against the door, then another. My breath caught in my throat. Something was outside. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to listen. The hallway was silent again, but the sense of urgency twisted my stomach. I couldn't stay here. I could feel time slipping away, and every second counted now. My mind raced with possibilities. I could make a run for it and hope I'd reach the exit before anything happened. Then I heard a low murmuring, the remnants of laughter lingering in the air. My first instinct was to grab my phone, but the signal in this building was spotty at best. There was no point in trying to call for help. I needed a plan. Instead of bolting for the door, I hurried to my desk and opened the drawer. The flashlight sat at the bottom, dull but functional. I grabbed it, my fingers shaking as I switched it on. The beam quivered as I pointed it around the room, the light flickering over the empty desk, the stark walls. Then I noticed the crack beneath the door. It flickered slightly, a shadow passing by. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the flashlight in front of me. Whoever was out there couldn't know for sure that I was in the office. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled. My breath caught again. I squeezed the flashlight so hard I thought it might crack. "Please, just go away," I whispered, more to myself than whoever was outside. The rattling stopped, but the silence felt like an impending storm. I could feel its weight pressing down. I needed to buy myself some time. I rushed to the window, hoping for a chance to escape. The darkness outside was thick, but I could see the outline of the ground below, about a 10-foot drop. No choice. I took a deep breath, readying myself for the leap. Just as I was about to push the window open, I heard a voice clear as day coming from behind me, cutting through the tension like glass. "You shouldn't have opened that." I spun around, flashlight beam blazing, but no one was there. I could feel the panic rise, hot and suffocating as my gut twisted. Instead of feeling safe with the door locked, now it felt like a flimsy barrier between me and whoever or whatever was out to get me. I could either keep searching for answers, or I could try to escape before the darkness fully consumed me. I took a step back from the window, listening intently, heart racing. One thing was certain, I had to decide quickly. I hesitated at the window, the night swirling outside like an unpredictable whirlpool. My heart raced, the panic hot on my skin. The words that had just echoed in my mind haunted me. "You shouldn't have opened that." I glanced back at the door. The wooden surface felt like an unforgiving barrier, separating me from the unknown lurking outside. Taking slow, deliberate breaths, I tried to gather my thoughts. It was disorienting, the fear blending with adrenaline. Should I leap from here? Or was the darkness more dangerous than what waited beyond that door? I felt twisted between confusion and terror. A sudden loud bang reverberated through the hallway, causing me to jump. It sounded like something heavy had struck the wall. My instincts kicked in. The time to decide was now. I pushed the window open, the chill of the night air biting at my skin. I could see the ground below, a drop that looked momentous in the dim light, but it was my only way out. I clambered onto the windowsill, nerves buzzing through me. With a final look back at my office, I leapt, arms flailing as I fell the short distance. I landed awkwardly, my ankle twisting at an unnatural angle. I stifled a cry but forced myself to stand. It hurt like hell, but the pain propelled me forward. I hobbled away from the building and didn't look back. The growling and the laughter faded into a haunting melody behind me, twisting into an echo of what I had just fled. I needed to reach my car and get the hell out of here. Each agonizing step felt like an eternity. As I reached the edge of the parking lot, I glanced back. The office building loomed, cold and silent, concealing whatever dark mysteries lay within its walls. What had I unleashed there? Questions swirled in my mind like a storm, but there wasn't room for any of them right now. I had to keep moving. I finally reached my car, quickly fumbling for the keys. My hands trembled as I punched in the unlock button and stumbled inside. Slamming the door shut, I took a moment to compose myself, leaning against the steering wheel in relief. I could still feel the weight of unseen eyes watching from the dark, but I needed to put distance between myself and that place. After starting the engine, I glanced again at the building in my rearview mirror. It loomed like a shadow of my past, one that I'd never fully comprehend. I pulled out of the parking lot, heart pounding with each beat, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. As I drove away, the memory of the dark figure crept into my thoughts. I had escaped tonight, but at what cost? Just as I pulled onto the road, my phone buzzed violently beside me. Heart racing, I picked it up and saw a new message, a photo sent from an unknown number. I hesitated before opening it, but the curiosity was too strong. I clicked on the image, and my heart dropped. It was a photo of me, taken from the parking lot while I had been getting into my car. Underneath the image, that same word appeared, soon. I stared at the screen, breathless. The abyss I had just escaped was clawing its way back in, and I couldn't tell if the threat was over or just beginning. Questions swirled in my mind. Who had taken that photo? What did they want? As I drove into the night, the clarity of my escape began to blur, replaced with that lingering weight of something dark shifting just beyond the edge of understanding. I didn't know how it would all end, but I had a sinking feeling it wasn't over yet. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if the echoes of those nights still follow me, but mostly I try not to think about it.